I've got news for the church and news for the world. If we take a vine or a branch like this and we find another tree, and you can take your pocket knife, you listen to what I'm telling you, true, because I've watched it happen before. You can take your pocket knife and take this branch and go over into that trunk of that tree or that vine and start whittling out a hole long enough to stick this stem in it. And guess what that's called? That's called engrafting. And do you know what will happen? That tree or that vine will fall in love with that branch. Oh, you didn't hear what I'm saying? It'll fall in love with that branch, and it'll begin to take a hold of it and start supplying it the blood, the joy that branch needs. And guess what? Even when this branch was withering and dying, if you get it back in there before it completely dies, guess what will happen? It'll be engrafted in that vine, and it will come back out. You won't even be able to tell that it was ever plucked from the vine. You'll never. And guess what? It'll start growing again. It'll start producing fruit. And that, oh, do you hear what I'm saying? I think it's time that we start looking and saying, you know what? I've been through this thing long enough. I'm going to get myself reconnected. I'm going to make sure that the fullness of joy is in my life. I'm going to make sure that I'm hooked to Jesus Christ. I'm going to make sure that His joy is my life. His joy is my strength. His joy is my peace. And this year, I'm going to walk in joy. You say, preacher, how can you promise that? Let me tell you how I can promise that. In His presence, there is fullness of joy. I'm telling you right now, it's not about getting around a bunch of people and calling that fellowshipping with God. I'm talking about some intimate time when you can get alone in a prayer closet somewhere and say, okay, God, now it's just you and me, just you and me. And I want you to know right now, I've been through some stuff. I didn't like it, but I knew you allowed it, and therefore you brought me victory, and therefore I'm going to love you. I'm going to praise you. And even if victory don't come tomorrow or come the next day or next week, I'm still going to love you, and I'm going to prove it, because I'm going to be a soul winner. I'm going to smile in the face of my adversaries. I'm going to smile in the face of frustration. I'm going to be happy when everybody thinks I ought to be sad, because I'm going to abide in your presence, because in your presence there is fullness of joy. Somebody get on your feet and give Him a great big hand clap of praise. Come on, give Him praise right now, everybody. In His presence, there is fullness of joy. Jesus says that we can have this joy if we abide in Him and He abides in us. We can have this joy. We used to sing a song as kids, the joy of the Lord is my strength. The joy of the Lord is my strength. That's all I know of it. The joy of the Lord is my strength. Joy of the Lord is, boy, that's a hard song to learn. But see, that's the joy of the Lord. I have joy, I have peace in His presence. In His presence, there's fullness of joy. Look at somebody and say, in His presence, there is fullness of joy. How many want that joy? How many can be honest with yourself and honest with God and honest with me and say, you know what, preacher? It's been a long time since I've had that type of joy. But I know that in His presence, I'll find that fullness of joy. Can you just raise your hand and say, Pastor,